We're here today with Senator James Inhofe in his offices here on Capitol Hill, and has been kind enough to invite me up here. And Senator Inhofe, first off, pleasure to speak with you again.
Well, it's nice to have you back. As few friends as I have, my door's always open.
Well, thank you. You've been busy doing a lot of work trying to rein in the EPA. You had hearings last week, and those seemed to go pretty well for you.
Well, I think they did. Now, first of all, I was fortunate to be asked to be the lead witness before the House committee. And it was kind of fun because you had Markey and Waxman and all these far-left people up there who knew exactly what they're going to say. And this is something that we deal with all the time. But the general public, you guys are doing a good job trying to get this out. The general public, they look at the huge deficits in this budget the president came out with and all the spending, and they look at Obamacare and how outrageous that is, but they don't talk enough about what this president is trying to do to destroy the free enterprise system through regulations. And I'm talking about regulations that put everyone down. I spent 10 years and finally we were successful in stopping any kind of cap and trade, but what he's trying to do is do the same thing that he can't do legislatively through regulations. And the amount is something that we pretty much everyone's agreed upon. If they were to pass this, we'd be talking about between $300 and $400 billion a year. You know, I remember back in 1993, the Clinton-Gore tax increase, marginal rates, gasoline, everything, this outrageous tax increase. If you add all of those taxes up, it was $30 billion. This would be 10 times greater than that. Now, that's the thing that people need to look at. And it's not just a cap and trade through regulations. They have all these emissions requirements on boilers, on refineries, that will put Americans out of work. And quite frankly, all the labor unions are now coming over and realizing that these jobs are going to go overseas. They're going to go to China, they're going to go to India, they're going to go to Mexico, they're going to go places where they don't have the emission problems that we have here. Then they talk about the ozone requirements, the fact that they're going to change. That's not even due yet, and yet if they're going to put 608 counties out of compliance, that's going to be thousands, hundreds of thousands of jobs all throughout America. And so that, you know, those are the things like hydraulic fracturing. I come from Oklahoma. The first hydraulic fracturing that was done was 1948 in my state of Oklahoma. This is the only way that you can get into the shale, into the tight formations. Right now, and this wasn't true a year ago, but now we know the United States of America has more recoverable reserves in gas, oil, and coal than any country in the world. Our problem is 80% of that we can't get at because of the politicians. The far left that doesn't want us to exploit our own resources. It just drives me crazy when these guys are always talking about, oh, we got to do something about being dependent upon the Middle East and all that for our ability to provide energy. And yet they're the ones that won't let us exploit our own energy that we have, our own natural resources. If we could do that, we could be completely free of any kind of dependence upon the Middle East to run this machine called America. So that's the frustration. I just want more people to start talking about the overregulation, the cost in terms of dollars, taxes, and jobs that means to America. Not that we don't have enough to complain about with this administration as it is. But I think, you know, when the budget came out, you just came out with a budget, and I just got off the plane, and I can't believe when I'm reading $8.7 trillion in new spending. You know, the American people know we have an administration that has given us already more than $3 trillion in 2 years deficits alone. And they keep going back and saying, well, this is what we inherited from George Bush. George Bush's deficits averaged $247 billion, and that was when he's trying to rebuild a military to confront the war on terror that started on 9/11. So all these things that are going on, I can't see the Democrats in the Senate going along with this stuff, because particularly those Democrats who come up for re-election in 2012.
I'm curious about this because I have to tell you, I was very surprised when I saw the numbers, how really kind of timid they were in terms of cuts. Now, I don't think I expected it to be, you know, deep slashes in the budget, but you know, House Republicans came up with $100 billion over 7 months that they could cut from as an appetizer, I guess you could say, even before you got into entitlement reform. here you've got an average of $110 billion each year for the next 10 years. That's for a full year, and I mean that's weaker than what the House just came up with over 7 months. Were you expecting to see, after listening to President Obama's State of the Union address, were you expecting to see a little bit more in terms of leadership on cuts?
Well, yeah, I was, but let me go back and say, if you look, right now they're talking about what can we do with $100 billion here or $100 billion there. Let's face it, the Republicans were equally responsible for the $700 billion bailout. I can remember standing there in our committee room saying, "What's wrong with you guys? $700 billion giving to an unelected bureaucrat," and that bailed out GM and AIG and Chrysler and all these things that people find so distasteful. Well, the Republicans went along with it. Then the Democrats came in on the stimulus, another $800 billion that didn't stimulate, didn't do any of the 3% of that went to roads and highways. If we had had half of that, we would sure have a lot. But then you have Obamacare, $1.5 trillion over. So we're talking about 100 billions here and trillions here. And then he's trying to find a place to cut. Where is he cutting in this budget? Military. I've never seen a liberal yet who thinks we need a military. They all believe that if all countries will stand in a circle and hold hands and unilaterally disarm, that all threats would go away. They believe that. Obama believes that. So he cuts $80 billion out of the military. But that's the only cuts I can find in this whole sheet that we've got here. The trillions of increases, but then cutting the defense budget.
Yeah, Paul Ryan was going through the budget earlier in a blogger conference call, and he was saying that they're showing cuts in sort of a dishonest way here, which is to have the assumption that troop levels were going to stay the exact same as they were in Afghanistan over a 10-year period, and then use the drawdown as take credit for a drawdown for defense cuts. It does seem like there's a lot of gimmicks in this.
It's dishonest and not just disingenuous, because he has been forced, and I'm glad he was finally forced to say, we're not going to be withdrawing. I spent New Year's Eve with the troops in Afghanistan. I talked to them over there. They're very proud of what General Petraeus is doing, and they're going to do their best. But to artificially have deadlines, timelines for withdrawals, that isn't going to happen. It just isn't going to happen. So he's assuming that is going to happen, and those jobs disappear, and therefore that's going to be a cut. That is totally dishonest.
What are the chances that this budget is actually going to go through Congress? I'm pretty sure what the chances are in the House, but I mean, do you think he's going to get support from Democrats on this budget here in the Senate?
Of course, you've got to have the House and the Senate to make it work for it.
Right.
And in the Senate, this is what I think. There are 23 Democrat incumbents coming up for re-election in 2012. Of those 23, 11 I call endangered species. These are the ones that are from states like Florida and Nebraska and Michigan and Illinois, from states where I think the people are not going to elect another Obama follower. So I look for the individuals to try to get away from following Obama. The old saying in politics that when the ship sinks, the rats jump off. Well, they're jumping off, and they're not going to walk the plank with this guy because they saw what happened to their brothers and sisters in 2010. So my feeling is they're not going to have. Of course, I say that, and yet every one of the Democrats voted against repealing Obamacare. So maybe they might be some kind of a hypnotic state.
I was about to ask you that. I mean, that should have been a fairly easy vote for them to take because President Obama simply could have vetoed the bill, and that would have ended the bill anyway. It seemed like it would have been a fairly easy political thing to do to let President Obama take the heat, and I was a little surprised
they didn't do it.
Yeah, they didn't do it. Yeah, I'm a little surprised by that.
Yeah,
Were you so?
and Harry is. A lot of people criticize Harry Reid, but I'll tell you, he sets his sights on something and he gets it done. Mm-hmm. So, as bad as it was, when I heard the roll call, and I was there, and I kept thinking, there's got to be some of these really endangered Democrats who don't want to go home and say, I voted against repealing socialized medicine. Mm-hmm. That should be a no-brainer, but they did. Now, of course, I guess what I'm saying might sound inconsistent because I know that those Democrats who are in tough races in 2012 are not going to just walk the plank with Obama, and yet they did on. Maybe you made some kind of a deal. If you do this one time, we'll cut you loose. I don't know what goes on behind those doors. Not sure I really want to know.
I was going to say, it would be kind of interesting to find out, but I don't think I'll get an invite to find that out either. Getting back to the EPA, getting back to the ways in which you can rein in the EPA. Obviously, you're holding hearings. They had the hearings about global warming, and you had a chance to sort of cross swords with Barbara Boxer.
Well, we had around 30 hearings during the last 2 years, all on that, and yet we won in the hearts and minds of the American people, and on the legislation we won. There's no cap and trade bill. They don't have the votes to do it. I went to Copenhagen and told 191 other countries that the president has lied to you, and so has Hillary Clinton, and so has John Kerry, and so has Barbara Boxer and Nancy Pelosi. We're not going to pass a cap and trade bill. Now, they still run things in this Environment and Public Works Committee because Democrats are a majority. So Barbara Boxer is the chairman instead of me. I used to be the chairman back when Republicans were a majority. So they're going to have hearings, and they're going to have people coming in, and all of these bureaucracies are forced to say that they have cap and trade and greenhouse gases and global warming at the front of every decision that they make. That's Obama and the majority of Democrats in the Senate.
Your neighbor to the south, Texas, has been told by the EPA that they are no longer able to control their own quality standards because of a dispute between Texas and the EPA. Do you think that that's going to be a big platform on which this is going to be fought? Because obviously Rick Perry is saying that he's going to fight the EPA all the way down the line.
Well, Rick Perry's doing a great job, by the way, and he's looking better and better in the president's race.
Well, he says he's not in it, but I'm not sure I buy that. Yeah,
we can all be accused about that. But Rick Perry is. If you remember, it wasn't more than a year ago that they came along and killed his 11 coal-fired generating plants.
Yep.
And all he's trying to do is just provide energy for the people of his state, Texas. And so this is consistent with that. The EPA is going to try to shut down. You watch and see what they try to do in Oklahoma now that we have a good conservative Republican governor, and all of our secondary offices are Republican, including the Attorney General. Scott Pruitt is now suing on the Obama thing, and so I think some good things are going to happen. Rick Perry and Virginia and have kind of led the way, but we're going to see a lot of the states rising up and saying, we still have states' rights, and we're not going to be run by the EPA.
I think that's going to be the next big battleground for the EPA. Is going to be on the states versus the EPA.
I think it is too, because there's so many states now that have been totally changed in their makeup that they're not going to roll anymore.
Senator Inhofe, thanks for being with us today, and I really appreciate you coming, letting me in here to chat with you for a few minutes.
Anytime. Thank you for coming.